How are you, folks? Today I would like to prepare you a very nice dough which can be used to prepare several other nice dishes. And for this we start with dry yeast, and normally you can just simply mix it with the flour to prepare the rest of your dough, but I normally take an extra step to make sure that my yeast is functioning very well, and basically it helps also to improve the dough much faster. And for what I'm preparing today, we have a 60% hydration dough, which meaning per a kilo of flour you need about 600 milliliters or 600 grams of water. And for this I have basically half this amount, which is equal to 500 grams of flour, 300 grams of water, which I will add later, 1 teaspoon of yeast, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of salt. But as I mentioned, the first step, we would like to activate our yeast. So what I have here, an arbitrary amount of water, which is relatively warm to touch. I'm adding my 1 teaspoon of yeast to this water, and the next I'm adding also a teaspoon of sugar. And since in principle the yeast is some kind of fungi, so it needs a carbohydrate source to grow, and here the sugar provides this nutrition for the yeast to activate and help our dough to improve. So then I will just simply mix our yeast with the sugar. Then I will cover it and put it in a gap space which is not so hot, not so cold, for about 10 to 15 minutes, and you should see basically that the yeast slowly activates itself and starts to rise. And I will see you in about a couple of minutes. So it's about 15 minutes now, and as you can see, our yeast has been nicely activated, and as you can see here, and this shows that when you are trying to use basically powdered or dry yeast, it's always a nice basically step to try to see if your yeast is functioning. As we said, this is a biological basically suspension, so the yeast is a live creature. So before we try to basically proceed with our preparation of dough, it's always a nice step to take to basically test its function. So what I do, I basically have my flour here. It's about 500 grams of flour, or a little bit about 1 pound. And to make it a bit more healthier, we had basically a normal flour 2/3 and another 1/3 with the full corn flour, so to have it a little bit more nutritious. So in the next step, I basically made a well. I add my yeast. I tried also wash my yeast one more time, because why not? And I will try to slowly prepare it, but this is not the full amount of water, so I will add more water as we go forward. As you can see, I made a bit of a mess, but yeah, it's always, how do you call it, without a mess it's difficult to make a good basically food. So no worries, this space we have already cleaned it, so it's not a problem. As I said, it's just a little bit of a mess, but it's always, yeah, helps to basically make a bigger well. So that's what we have learned today. But as like similar to you, I'm not a professional chef, I have studied totally something else. My day job is totally something different, but it is just to have, how do you call it, a very healthy food, or this mantra to promote basically healthy eating. This is why I said, okay, I'll try to do it. I've seen many people complain that, okay, we are working full time. It's very difficult to for us to cook, and basically, so no, that's not the case. And it doesn't have to be difficult. So, and the other easier way would be that we, instead of basically well method, you mix basically flour with the rest of the ingredient in a simple bowl, and then you transfer it on your work area to basically try to knead it as much as possible, and basically to help it improve. So as you see, I'm adding little by little the amount of water required, and at the end of the day, you can also replace these steps with a normal food processor, and we will try to also show you in one of the future videos how to use basically the food processor to create this dough. And anyway, it's rather simple and it doesn't take too much time, so it's not a big deal that if you want to prepare this with hands. So, and now to basically make it simpler, we will basically make a small cut. I will prepare the rest. I will add the rest, the water. I will try to knead as much as I can, because it's quite a good workout in a simple day. And then we will get back when the first step is ready. So we are back once more. So I've managed to clean up the mess a little bit. I've mixed all the water with my dough, and as you can see, it's very nice and consistent, and I'm trying to knead as much as possible. So since we are using also full corn flour in general, the more you knead, the more nice dough you will have. Following for a couple of minutes, I would say, you can basically let it rest to improve for about 2 to 3 hours. I mean, this also varies how warm your kitchen is, how warm the place of the improvement is, how warm is basically the area which you place your bowl in, and naturally also your yeast as well. So it can vary heavily, but normally you should let the dough improve to increase its size by almost double. So when you see that your dough's initial size is already increased with double, then you have your first improvement done. And then following the first improvement, basically we will let it rest again, and then we will have also, following the first improvement, we will have a second improvement as well. So as you can see, our second dough the first time is ready. I'll just place it in a nice bowl, which I had from before. I have the flour, so it doesn't stick to the bowl. The flour on top, and now I will cover it with a nice plastic foil for the next 2 hours and let it improve. We are back. It's about 2.5 hours later. Arguably, I let the dough to improve itself way more than it's necessary. So it's right now pretty much, this bowl is full, but I will try to improve it. Within normal principle, if you let it to rise to almost twice the size of the original dough, that should basically do the trick. So what we will do, we will right now take it out of the bowl. We will knead it a little bit, and we will basically divide it into 4 smaller pieces, and we will let them to rise for another 15 to 20 minutes. And in the meantime, we will basically try to basically prepare the other ingredients which are required for these dishes. Yeah. That is basically, yeah. So that's out, and we will basically a little bit of flour here, and that's out. Knead it a little bit. As you can see, it's very nice and soft, so it's not, I mean, 60% hydration is not considered a dough with a high water content. I mean, it's not a small amount. However, we can also go to doughs with higher hydration. But for this kind of dishes, which I will show you in a little bit, normally this amount should basically suffice, and it has enough flexibility for us to do what we want, but it's also very easy to handle, because one of the biggest problems of the doughs with high amount of water content, that they are not so easily handled. I mean, you need a little bit of work, and you need a little bit of experience. So I have a water here, and I will make 4 small pieces. Sprinkle them with a little bit of flour. However, don't overuse or over sprinkle with the flour, because you will have a chance that your dough will be too basically thick, or it will be not so easy to handle. So as you see, I'm preparing small holes, then there, and the last one, and then I will cover them and let them rise for another 10 to 15 minutes. It's about 15 minutes for the second rise. This time I just basically let them rise in room temperature while covered with a piece of cloth, and that should be more than enough. So let's see what we have here. So this is a piece of cloth, and we start with one of these beautiful guys. So I will sprinkle a little bit of flour, and I will just lightly, basically using a roller, I will try to make a nice circle. So, yeah. Well, most likely you will be much better than this step in comparison to me, because I was always terrible in arts in the school. So whatever circles I've always draw, they look like more of a rectangle than a circle. So as you can see, it's still kind of obvious here. So, and I will try but my best to make it into a nice circle. And so. So that's more or less done. So in this step, I will basically cover it with a little bit of tomato sauce. So, generously cover it with a tomato sauce, which is nicely seasoned with salt and pepper. And I will some nice amount of shredded mozzarella in between. I will try to make it into a nice ball. Don't worry, it's gonna look much better than this at the end. So, yeah, I'll sprinkle it again. Flour, and I will basically spread it a little bit, and this time it seems my circle was better. So, yeah. So in this step you make like 8 incisions, and you will basically pick each one of the slices and turn them aside and make some space for the sausages. Yeah, so this is how it is. So last one. So now what we will do, basically, to fill them with our sausages. If you use bigger sausages, then you can also put just one slice in them. But I'm using here small ones, so it's basically 2 pieces required per one of these cloves. So cover your sausages nicely with the dough. Make sure they are nice and fit. Don't worry, nothing can go wrong, so it's not a problem. Da, da. So, the last step, I will basically use a little bit of egg yolk to give it a little bit of shine. So it's nicely covered with the egg yolk. Then to make it even look nicer, you will make a small, get here. Then put a cherry tomato in between and some more shredded mozzarella. I've prepared a second star and transferred them basically using a metal plate that you can basically scrape from the bottom and transfer them to a baking tray. I've also preheated my oven to about 200 degrees Celsius, and the baking time should be around 15 to 20 minutes. I mean, you can just simply test it when they become golden brown and it's nice and basically crispy. It should be ready. So now we will put them into the oven. And we patiently wait. The waiting is enough, the stars are sufficiently cooled, and we have garnished it, as I mentioned, with a little bit of salad, a couple of cherry tomatoes, and a little bit of dill. As per usual, you can garnish it with whatever you want. And now, the tasting. So, we'll knock the stars off. Yeah, it tastes very nice. So the bread is nice and crispy. I mean, the sausages are roasted also nice. As maybe a tiny criticism for myself, I would next time add a little bit of our Parmesan cheese to give it a little bit more saltiness and give it a little bit of also more flavor. But altogether, yeah, it's very nice. So that's it for today, and we will catch up with you on next one.